Nicole was the best fling I ever had. So good, it ruined just about any woman I ever had after. So imagine my glee when Nicole showed up at my door late one night, unannounced. I'll spare you the details and let you know it was just as good as I always remembered. Nicole never came back again. I tried to text and call her and track her down on social media, yet got nothing. I assumed maybe she was married and it was just a one-off fling she had to get out of her system or something. I wasn't complaining. Nicole may have been the best hookup of my life, but Becca was the love of my life. The only thing was I apparently wasn't hers. I had bought the ring to propose to Becca and everything. I was just waiting for her birthday. Then I came home and she had moved all of her stuff out. She was gone. The uncoupling was slow and steady, her officially breaking up with me, moving out. Then came the not returning texts or calls, then the unfriending and unfollowing. Then she was basically gone. A few years went by. I moved on, but sadness always lingered. I never wanted to lose Becca. I never found anyone to replace her. Nothing ever felt right. I had just drifted apart from another semi-relationship when Becca appeared again. Like Nicole, she just showed up at my house one night. Becca wasn't Nicole. We didn't have an all-night sex marathon and then she crept away. We talked. We caught up until the sun rose. I was happy again. I didn't press her for more than that night. I didn't want to scare her. She said she had recently broken up with a long-term boyfriend. She needed time and I was happy to oblige. It started inconsistently. Becca would text me and then come over from time to time. Then it started to progress. Becca came over every night. I fell in love again, yet something didn't feel right. Becca, being an impromptu night owl, was completely out of character. She also wouldn't let me in too deep, wouldn't tell me almost anything about her life. She also wouldn't accept my follow request on Instagram. It was extra frustrating, given it looked like who I assumed was her ex was in her profile photo. I confronted Becca on it, and she started to backpedal. I regretted it. She got defensive and left first thing in the morning. Then she stopped communicating with me. I was alone and depressed again, but it didn't feel like it. I started to get scared in my own house. The first thing I found odd was the behavior of my heating system. I kept it rather low, even in the cold winter since it was so expensive. Every time I went by the thermostat though, it was cranked up. I would turn it down and then I would feel the heat kick right back on and find the temperature turn back up. There was no way of stopping it. I worked at home and didn't have a rather robust social life and was home 24/7, 7 days a week. So this was a major battle. I was trying to fix the thermometer when I got a piece of news which made my body go cold despite the heat being cranked to 79 degrees. My friend called me and shared a shocking piece of news with me. He ran into one of Nicole's friends he knew from when we were dating. Nicole's friend let my friend know something horrible and shocking. Nicole had died in a car crash. My heart shattered. It was the worst news I had ever received. Even if Nicole had ghosted me a couple months before, I was numb. That numbness switched to horror when my friend shared another detail. Nicole had died 2 years ago. I had him clarify. He confirmed. She had died 2 years before. I googled it and found an obituary. I immediately didn't feel safe in my house. Right on cue, I felt the heat turn on and looked at the thermometer. I watched the temperature start to climb right before my eyes. I left the house. I wanted to confirm that I still lived in the real world. I left the house so rarely I sometimes wondered if I did or not. I could confirm I was very much in the world. I was alive. Nicole was not. Yet, she had shown up at my house. My next mission was to confirm if Becca was alive or dead. She hadn't replied to me in years, so I reached out to her sister and got her to respond, explaining my desperation given the situation with Nicole and her death. Becca's sister explained she was very much alive. She had just gotten married and moved to Canada with her husband. She was not spending a bunch of time at my house recently. My brain was destroyed, but I was trying to make sense of things as I sat in my house, suddenly feeling like something horrible was breathing all around me. Someone was at the door, knocking softly. I didn't want to answer it. I knew nothing good could come from it. I stayed frozen. Another knock. I had to do something. I couldn't hide. I went to the door. I could recognize her just from the silhouette. I could smell her familiar scent of perfume through the door. My mom was outside. My mom had died 5 years before. I opened the door and saw her standing there in her typical posture, smiling, happy, looking full of life. I didn't know what to do. I knew whatever was standing there wasn't my mom. I also knew I couldn't stand to close the door on her. her. I looked into her eyes for a few seconds. "It's so good to see you," my mom's familiar, warm voice said just before I shut the door. I couldn't face it. I knew what was out there wasn't my mom. I knew whatever was out there was either in my head or it was something that was trying to do me harm. I tried to maintain this thought while I listened to my mom cry on the other side of the door and beg me to let her in. The situation left me with only one option. There was no way to logistically explain what happened, so I could no longer hold skepticism. I briefly dated a woman named Penny about a year before. I really liked Penny despite her being quite odd. She had a fun and genuine effect, and she looked like a happier version of Aubrey Plaza. The morning after the first time Penny stayed over, she left before sunrise. She made me go out to her car with her. She told me I needed to move out of my house if we were going to keep dating. There was something evil in the house she could feel, and it was growing, and she couldn't be near it. I also should not be near it. I asked if she was serious a few times, and she doubled down. I laughed it off and we parted ways. She texted me about it that night. I never texted her back. Eventually I deleted her number. Thankfully I still had her number in Hinge. I got her on the phone. Penny listened to me. I explained what had just happened. She told me two things: not to leave the house. She might be able to help me. Penny explained she wouldn't go into my house until the next sunrise. I had to make it through the night on my own until then. I should be able to. It sounded to her like I had a serious problem, but it wasn't potentially fatal yet. Potentially fatal. What the hell had I gotten myself into? Penny told me to sit tight, turn off all the lights, don't use any electronics, draw no attention to myself, try to sleep or something. That was all perfectly easy. I put myself onto the couch in the living room, threw a blanket over myself and popped a sleeping pill. I had somehow fallen asleep, at least for a while. I woke up still in the darkness, no idea what time it was. The sleeping pill was still very much in my blood. I was impossibly sluggish. I couldn't get up off the couch. What I could do was see that the front door of my house was ajar, and I could smell that perfume scent in the air. I felt my mom in the house. Why had Penny told me to not leave the house? She hadn't really explained. Why was I listening to Penny again? Wasn't the best idea to just flee the house? Isn't that what you always scream at the characters in horror movies as they get themselves killed or further haunted? I heard someone move behind me. Oh shit. I was finally able to get off the couch and jumped up, tensed myself up, ready to fight. "You really need to lock your door," Penny quipped as my senses took her in. How did I get this ghost? What was it? The question spilled out of me to Penny. Everyone tries to complicate ghosts, like there's always some backstory or they latch onto you because it's someone you knew or something. The truth is it's just a glitch in the afterlife system. Some get lost and hang around. They try to cling to any life they can find and hang on, so if you get stuck with one, that's it. Penny explained. I needed more. Why me? It's totally indiscriminate. It's like a virus. Like your water heater guy could have left in here, the pizza guy could have brought it. Usually, if you're mentally healthy enough, you don't notice them and they wilt and go away. They live on attention. Clearly, you're not clear of mind. That's why I told you to stay home. We don't need you out there running around, spreading it around, Penny answered. But it looked and acted like people in my life. My exes, my mom. They evolved that to show up as people you know and love so you would keep them around. If you're healthy enough, it doesn't present that way, and the only way to beat it is to get better, which you seem to struggle with doing. It talks to you, it interacts with you, it drives you crazy. What do you think happened to all those homeless people out of the street screaming at nothing? So the house isn't haunted. It's only people that matter. No, that whole it's the person that's haunted, not the house is just an excuse made up by writers to keep the family in the house in movies, in books and stuff. How do I get better? Just you gotta let the thing in and be stronger than it. Don't give in. You never should have fucked that wild ex when she showed up. You knew she was bad news and probably could have given you an STD or got pregnant. You knew the ex you liked wasn't real. Deep down, you knew she wouldn't just show up unannounced and walk you again, but you let it in. So what do? We don't do it. You do it. I'm leaving and you just have to fight through it and not let this thing take you down. It will eventually fade. Okay, all good. It can't kill me. Penny hesitated. I didn't like that, right? There's no documented cases of a ghost hurting or killing. You think ghosts leave fingerprints, DNA. You hear of someone dropping dead randomly of a heart attack while otherwise healthy, fall in the shower, someone who doesn't seem depressed committing suicide. They mess you up into doing it. This information didn't set well. Neither did Penny leaving, despite her encouragement that I could get through it, along with a reminder that I couldn't leave the house or interact with anyone. Wait, I ran out and caught Penny before she drove away, clearly bothering her, but I had to ask her the question. Don't you have it now? The ghost. Kind of like a virus. Once you get through one, you're immune, Penny said and drove off. I was on my own. I turned on every light in the house, turned on a bunch of electronics, just like Penny said. I wanted to draw this thing in this time. I sat there, numbly watching TV and waiting, trying to remember the things that Penny told me. I had to just let it come and ignore it, not give in. I couldn't leave home. It would get fainter and fainter, and I had to just keep pushing through. Don't reach out to her, that would show weakness. Just write it out. Try to sleep. That's what I did. I went to bed. Then it started. I was lying in bed and I felt the heat start to crank. I started sweating profusely underneath the blanket I had pulled up over my head. I could feel it there next to me, next to the bed. Then I felt it start to pull on the blanket. It was strong. I was not going to be able to fight it off. I soon found out. I was soon looking at my younger brother, James, who passed away when he was in his early 20s. Always stronger, always more confident. James was a force of nature with no fear, which is why he passed away, thinking he could drink entire bottles of liquor and drive, and not get caught, or drive off a highway and crash his truck. This was the kind of thing James would do growing up. Go into my room and pummel me, pin me, wrestle me, assert his dominance. He started to climb on top of my chest and I turned away. I laid on my side and just let him keep trying to wrestle me and grab my attention. This virus of a ghost was diabolical. It knew James would rupture my heart. Even worse than my mom, I never got to say goodbye to James. He was just left one Sunday morning when I woke up. My older brother, the one who stood up to anyone who picked on me, reduced to ashes off of Highway 9. He kept talking in my ear to try and get me to fight back the way he always would. He took everything in me not to turn around. Then I felt him twist my ear. I felt real searing pain. He cranked it hard a way he never would in real life, reminding me it wasn't really James there torturing me in my bed. Penny had said like a real virus, it was going to get worse before it got better and I could see the light. I finally got out of bed and ran to the bathroom. I could finally breathe for a moment and collect myself. Then the light started to flicker off and on, an annoyance James would love to terrorize me with when we were kids. It took a second, but James started to come back into picture in the bathroom mirror, drenched in blood, his neck ripped open. The sight of it got me to start crying uncontrollably. I could barely see, my tears were so thick. James started to plead to me, begging me, sounding soft and pathetic and hysterical and scared in a way I never imagined my big, bad, older brother could. Please, 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 you gotta help me. There was nothing I could even do by the looks of it either. He was bleeding out, and fast. His blood was splashing all over me. He leaned all his weight on me and I stopped fighting. I let him take me down to the floor. Then he flicked out the lights and I felt myself start to feel like I was suffocating. I woke up in the bathtub, half full with water, in the shower pounding water down on my face, cold and shocking. Penny stood next to the tub, looking pained, but relieved that she saw life on my face. It took me a second to realize something else odd. The lighting was dim and murky. It was candlelight. It got you to turn the power out and I can't figure out how to get it back on. I couldn't think of how I would have even done that, especially considering I had just woken up from a blackout. I had you deep, you were almost gone, Penny went on. What happened? I asked Penny. I realized I had to come help you. I also realized it's my fault. I relapsed, Penny said. I had no idea what that all fucking meant. Apparently, with Penny's explanation, it meant this. She went home and was greeted by the awful, violent spirit of her abusive dad. His presence gave her a revelation. She wasn't getting creeped out by the spirits in my house that first night she stayed over. She was creeped out because my house really reminded her of her horrible childhood home, where her dad terrorized her. The vulnerability my house kicked up in her had left her open to getting invaded by the virus of new spirits, bad ones, and she had left that energy at my house that first night, and it festered and grew with the darkness and vulnerability inside me, but she would make it right. It was all her fault, and she was falling apart. I heard the grotesque sound of a grisly throat clearing outside the bathroom door. I saw Penny's face drop in a way that made me very, very uneasy. Someone tried the door handle. It rattled, locked. I heard an angry man scream at the door. Open the fucking door right now. Can't it just get right through the door anyway? It's a spirit. Mine did it, I asked Penny. It's what this one wants to do. It wants to get angrier, Penny whispered back. Penny killed the candlelight. Pure, unfiltered darkness reigned again. The angry man kept yelling belligerently and trying the door. He pounded on it, nearly breaking the thick wood. I had been through a lot. My body felt ravaged. I had no idea if I was going to be able to sustain whatever pissed off evil was going to come through that door very soon. I knew one thing though, I was going to fight for Penny. I wasn't going to let this poor woman suffer anymore, even if she was supposed to be my Sherpa and how she was the one crying scared. I felt Penny run away from me. She was out the bathroom door because I could stop her. I could hear a struggle out there. I went out into the living room. No one was there. The front door was wide open. I watched Penny's shitty car drive off down the street. Penny wouldn't reply to my texts, calls, or social media requests. I wasn't sure if she was alive or dead. I never felt or saw odd things in my house anymore though. I felt truly alone again for the first time in a long time, in a good and in a bad way. The solitude allowed me to reflect on everything with Penny and what she said, the way the ghosts appeared and presented themselves, how there were good and bad spirits. I wondered if Penny was just one of them all along, a good one. I let it go and happily went on with my life. Just more thankful. I dated again. I got a girlfriend, said girlfriend, and I went to a farmer's market one day. I drifted away as she got lost in some jewelry stand or something I wasn't interested in. I wandered by a candle booth. The curly hair of the woman manning it caught my eye. It was Penny, undoubtedly. My eyes lingered on her as I walked past. She never noticed me. That was fine with me. I kept walking. Thank you to my superfans, Sweet Black Swan, Tacy, and Brooklyn. I really appreciate you guys supporting my channel, and I look forward to making more content for everyone.